So if you want to catch more striper out at Lake Mead or Lake Mojave, this is definitely the video you're going to want to watch. We're going to go over not only the lures that we use, but some of the locations you might want to find some of these striper in the fall, as well as some of the techniques that we're using, whether or not they're boiling or they're deep down. All right, so hopefully you're staying tuned, and let's go ahead and get started as far as where we're finding the fish. Now, I hate giving like specific spots or like GPS coordinates because the fish do move this time of year. And so I kind of want to give you some of the hints and tricks to kind of look out for when you're out there on the lake. Before the sunrise, and honestly in October, earlier October, you're going to want to be there before the sun rises, mainly because as soon as the sun hits the water, they're going to start boiling. So you want to be out there trolling and finding bait deep in about, I don't know, I'd say 70 feet of water, maybe as shallow as 50, all the way out to about 90 feet of water. And this has been good for us. We've been catching like 5-pound plus fish out using this technique to get started. And it's a great way to start the morning. Now, as the morning develops a little bit, you're going to want to use some binoculars and make sure you're actually finding the boils first. Now, you can always look for other boats, and if you see two boats kind of pointed together, or you see boats kind of going in a line, that kind of shows that they might be on fish. But if you just see them kind of trolling around and going just kind of randomly in their own different directions, that might be a sign that they're just boats fishing next to each other, not just because there's fish. So. But yes, we have been catching them consistently early in the mornings. But as later October comes and even early in November, you might want to hit some of those afternoon bites. So don't be afraid to get out there in the early afternoon and wait till the evening bite kind of gets started. All right. Now let's move into some of the techniques you're going to want to use. Now, obviously, when they're boiling, you can throw just about anything. But I really like doing topwater. Let's use just a couple of the lures as examples. So any kind of a topwater lure, you're going to want to get the biggest size you can. Unfortunately, I actually lost a couple of my larger sizes and I got to replace them. So I'm just using this lure as an example. It's not like it wouldn't work even at the smaller size, but the problem is you will catch smaller fish. And there's no reason to catch small fish this time of year. There's plenty of big ones around, and they are boiling, and they're in those boils. So throw a larger bait and let a couple of fish, bite your lure and maybe not get that hook because they're too small to grab the whole bait, and really wait for some of those monsters. This is really the time of year to do that. So that's any kind of a walk the dog technique is going to be really good on the surface. Or a popper will work too if you really don't know how to walk a spook or something like that. You can also throw swim baits. We've actually found that in the boils, surprisingly, the swim baits haven't been working as well as most years. However, we've been catching some good fish trolling these swim baits between boils. So if you are maybe thinking that, man, like we've been casting in this boil for a while and it seems like the fish are dying down or they're moving to a different location, don't be afraid to troll while you're on your way to a different location or a different boil. Because sometimes boils move so fast and the sound of the engine can actually scare those fish. So make sure you're not being that jerk out there that's running over fish with your engine. Try to use your trolling motor or at least your engine on idle. And try to slowly creep up to the fish and troll on your way there with as big of a bait as you can, pretty much. This one is, I don't know, probably about like a 5-inch bait, 5-inch trout size. And even these smaller, I don't know, 2-inch, 3-inch little storms will work too. But the bigger the better, because you're going to want to catch those bigger ones right now. So obviously there is a limit. We were using light tackle and we actually got spooled out on one of our tackles just because we were throwing a light bass rod, and we just were unprepared. We didn't think the fish were going to be that big this year. So when you see the boils and you're at them, definitely throw that topwater. And when you're moving in between boils or you're trying to find your first boil of the evening, don't be afraid to troll. If you found bait piles deep and you don't see any boils, this is when you're going to want to find yourself using a spoon. Now I've got a few different spoons right here just to use as examples. This is like a Spino type spoon that we've been throwing out at the lake for, I don't know, I don't know. I know some guys probably been throwing the same darn spoon for probably more than 40 years. I've been using it for only 20 years because I'm only 24 years old. But there's also these butterfly jigs. Now, this is about the smallest size that I would ever use on striped bass. This is about a half ounce. Nothing wrong with it. I just prefer this is like my minimum, and then I go up to this bigger 1 ounce size. And you can even go all the way up to 2 ounces. We've been catching fish in that 2 ounce size as well. But I really like this 1 ounce size right now for some of these larger fish. And it's not even because you won't catch fish on the smaller one, it's you won't catch small fish on this one. So if you want to avoid wasting time reeling in small fish, these are the times when you're going after some of these bigger size lures right now. And they're just a little bit sturdier made. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're just made a little bit better. They've got the thicker O-ring on them from the factory, thicker lines and hooks that won't bend down. And I've been bending out hooks all day with my smaller lures. So when you're catching 5 to 8 pound fish out there, you definitely could bend out some lures. One last thing as far as techniques and lures I want to talk about is rattle traps and crankbaits. So I personally like these rattle traps personally, and this is like a super old one that's just kind of like rusty and crusty out of my tackle box. But as you can see, every once in a while the hooks break, and I just replace the hooks once in a while on them. But these rattle traps work really well for both the boils and trolling. So if you don't want to keep changing baits out, you can definitely use a rattle trap. The biggest problem you're going to come with these is you will catch plenty of fish. You will catch a ton of small fish though. So that's why I personally haven't used the rattle trap at all. It's not that it won't catch fish. It's just that it's usually a technique that I use when either I only have one rod or I have some guests that are maybe novices and they don't want to change rods or change baits throughout the fishing trip. Or they just don't mind catching small fish and they kind of want to guarantee easy bait to throw that's going to catch fish, and that's probably going to be your rattle trap. So hopefully this fishing report helps you guys. If you have any questions, comment down below. I love sharing details. Like I said, I didn't give like specifics as far as like, oh, like fish like Colville Bay or, or oh, fish just outside of Las Vegas Bay and whatever area this GPS location, because the fish are moving. I can't tell you exactly where that next boil is going to pop up. Unfortunately, I wish I had that kind of, glass ball that where they're going to go. However, stay in that 50 to 90 foot range and you should find the bigger fish. So hopefully this helps you for October, and let's finish out this fishing season strong and have some fun out here in the fall. So, all right, thanks guys.